What are you actually doing? Like, what are your actual habits?
I think all of that is key to being successful for longer than 30 days.
Mental health, physical health, spiritual health. At the Collective Compass, we specialize in holistic health.
But are we going to talk about being successful for a decade? And these are the tools that we're providing.
What's up, everybody? It's Leslie with the Collective Compass, and we are in Valentine's mode 2021. I want to give you guys some tools today that you can use to attract the next level connection that you are wanting to attract in your life. So many of us have been through toxic relationships in the past, or relationships that have inspired us to grow. Any relationship that we've been in the past has hopefully, if we are focusing on self-awareness and focusing on our growth, we have more than likely gained a lot of lessons and a lot of experience in past relationships. If you are somebody that's looking for a next level connection in your life, hear me say this. This is going to be something that I want you to really hold on to this statement, because understanding this is something that I constantly have to remind myself of. Even in my healthiest relationship I've ever had to date, I constantly remind myself of this. Whether you are in a healthy relationship right now that has some toxic elements that you're trying to heal, or whether you're single and healing on your own, remember this: all lessons and growth and corrected karmic cycles from past connections will be tested in your future relationships, period. So every lesson that you've learned, every way that you feel like you've grown, just know that that's going to be put to the test, so that hopefully you grow over time, whether you're in the same relationship or whether you're in new relationships. I want your goal to practice on how can you make this relationship be the healthiest that you've ever been in? How can you continue to make it even healthier? How can you, coming from past relationships that have been toxic, enter into a healthy relationship? How can you attract that healthy connection? Humans thrive on connection. Being in the healthiest, most non-toxic, aligned, completely perfect for me a relationship that I've ever been in my entire life, and looking back at all the ways that I've attracted that relationship to show up in my life, has been a really amazing thing to be able to go back and look at. And awareness is actually the first place that you want to start. So at the Collective Compass, we are always going to start with self-awareness. Let's talk about the ways that you can use self-awareness to start to attract that healthiest connection into your life. So the first way that you can use self-awareness to begin to attract that next level connection into your life is to be aware of what karmic lessons and what answers to life's questions that you're putting out there into the universe. One thing that I believe wholeheartedly, because experience has proven it to be true for me, is that when I ask a question about life and about searching for the deeper meaning of something, that answer will find me. So if I'm constantly asking the question, why am I always in a bad relationship? Why do I always pick somebody that treats me bad? Why do I always end up, whatever it is? What you're going to see show up in your life is going to answer that question. So if you can put yourself in a mindset to be aware enough of what questions you're asking, you can start to ask more strategic questions. You can learn a lot about what type of energy you're attracting just by developing some self-awareness to understand what questions you're asking, what answers you're getting, we're in a constant state of asking questions to God or asking questions to the universe, whatever your beliefs are. We just constantly are asking questions, and they're going out into this space. And if we're receptive, we will receive an answer. So ideally, we're asking a question and we want to be receptive to the answer. You always get an answer. The answer will come. And so if you're constantly asking the same types of questions and you're not opening yourself to receiving the answer, then you're going to keep getting the same types of experiences in life. So the second step of developing self-awareness that's going to help you attract next level connection into your life right now is to be aware of what internal and external toxic patterns you need to work on related to self-love, self-care, sex, and external connections. Be aware of where you are right now energetically in this space. Are you somebody that is practicing self-love? Are you somebody that is comfortable with yourself? Are you somebody that has inner peace and the feeling of gratitude? And do you feel whole as a person already? Or are you seeking somebody to complete you? Be thinking about, okay, what feedback have I gotten from past relationships? What feedback do I get from the connections that I have? Do the majority of the people I know that I'm connected with feel like I'm open and peaceful and happy and whole and already feeling fulfilled? Or am I in a constant state of scarcity? Am I constantly needing more? Am I constantly feeling like I don't have enough? Am I constantly feeling incomplete? Am I constantly putting the vibe of neediness out there into the world? So when we start to develop the type of self-awareness that's going to help you attract the next level connection that your soul, your whole spirit, your mind, body, spirit really truly is wanting, it's a totally valid thing to feel incomplete without a healthy connection. But this is why we're doing the self-awareness work, because if you're attracting somebody from a space of neediness, then you're going to enter into a connection that is founded on toxic patterns of thinking and behavior. So you're going to want to really be aware, really do some reflection on what you've been through in past relationships. What types of things have been commonly showing up? How do you respond to triggers? Have you grown? Are you doing the same shit that you've been doing since high school? Are you doing the same? Are you reacting the same way to disappointment and frustration? Are you reacting the same way to somebody trying to express their boundaries to you? You know, what are the things that you can recognize that you still do when you sort of autopilot switch back to your toxic patterns? What are the toxic patterns that regularly show up for you in past relationships or the connections that you have now? Being really self-aware of the things that you need to work on still, and also being aware of the things that you've tried to shift, are really, really critical in attracting that next level connection. Because as I said in the beginning, anything that you've shifted, any of the different ways that you've grown, in the ways that you engage in connection, those things are going to be put to the test. So just be aware that just because you feel like you've understood something about yourself from past relationships, or that you can recognize certain patterns that you have that are toxic, and then you've actively tried to practice shifting them, just know that those patterns may always show up. You may have to do a lifetime of work for some of the toxic patterns that show up for you in connection. There's no such thing as, oh, okay, I've fixed that and now I don't have to worry about it anymore. Think about those things as something that you carry with you, not like baggage. You don't want to carry, we're not carrying the pain, we're not carrying the trauma, we're not carrying the she made me feel like this or he said that to me, or we're not carrying any of that with us. But what we are carrying with us are the tools, the lessons, the growth, the way that we know we want to show up differently, all of those types of things that we've learned. That's the type of thing that we want to carry with us into the new, healthy, aligned connection that we are looking to attract. So just continuously being aware of the ways that you've grown, reminding yourself consciously what it is that you want to do differently. And you can practice that in connections with people every day. You can look at the connections that you have with your children. If you have kids, you can look at the connections that you have with family members, sisters, parents, brothers, cousins, co-workers, anybody that you have a connection with. You have the opportunity to practice those types of behavior changes, those types of changes in thinking that are coming up as toxic, that are triggering you to respond in a toxic way. You can use those everyday connections that you have to practice all of the things that you want to do in a relationship that would make it more healthy for you. So when you're at work and somebody triggers you to feel like they're criticizing you, or you feel misunderstood, or you feel like there is a disconnection or any type of thing like that, you have the opportunity to use those moments as a way to practice how you want to respond in a connection, in an intimate connection. So even if you are not in a relationship right now and you want to be able to practice behaviors and patterns of thinking that can benefit you in a future connection that you're trying to attract, you can practice that right now just with people that you know. And I promise you that they're going to feel a shift in your energy. And a beautiful thing about trying to recognize all the ways that you can practice new, healthier thinking and behavior when it comes to connections is watch how they respond when you respond differently. Watch how they react to your shift in energy, or your shift in behavior, or your shift in body language and energy. Even, it's unbelievable to me what we can pick up on as human beings from one human being to another, just energetically. There's a lot that you can feel from somebody's energy that's not communicated through words. We have the ability to practice observing other people in our external environment to gauge whether we are doing what we're actually trying to do. If we're trying to make somebody feel like we're not getting defensive, or if we want to make somebody feel like we're listening, or if we want to make somebody feel like they're understood, we can practice those things at work. We can practice those things with family. We can practice those things in all these environments that we have different types of connections in, and we can become more observant in how that other person is responding to us and perceiving us and energetically interacting with us. And then we can gauge whether we're actually doing what we intended to do, whether we're actually shifting in a noticeable way, how we actually wanted to be received. When we do have that person show up in our life, we're going to be ready. We're going to already have had the chance to practice and prepare for how we're going to respond when we're triggered, how we're going to make sure that other person feels valued and heard and understood and loved. Prepare yourself for that relationship. That's what this whole video is about, for you to have a better understanding in how you can prepare yourself to attract that next level connection, and what you can be doing right now, because everything that we create and attract in our life comes from what we're doing and thinking and feeling energetically in this present moment. We are attracting so much to ourselves right now. Third self-awareness tool is being aware of your authentic needs, your boundaries, and the direction that you want to go in life. being aware of your boundaries is absolutely critical. And we have physical boundaries, we have mental boundaries, we have emotional boundaries, we have spiritual boundaries. Everyone has different boundaries. It's not that we need to think about this as like a wrong or right thing. Although when it comes to maybe your morals or your values as a human being conflicting, then you may have the tendency to feel like that person's wrong and you're right or whatever. But really, it's important to remember that it's not something to take personal if somebody doesn't compliment your energy. It's, as a codependent person, and I can just speak with, we're all on the scale of somewhere in between a complete narcissist and an absolute codependent. So depending on where you fall on that scale, I have always been more on the codependent side. And so for me, that means that, the ways that has shown up for me have been to ignore boundaries that I have, that I express to somebody, and then maybe they don't honor those boundaries. Instead of recognizing that as something that needed to be addressed, I would a lot of times not take the energy and not take the time and do the difficult thing for me to try to enforce those boundaries. And so those are examples of how being on the codependent side of the scale when it comes to patterns and, of thinking and behavior, how that can impact you. For me, knowing what my boundaries were, expressing them, voicing them, and honoring them, which means that when those boundaries are tested, that you stand firm on the boundaries that you need to stand firm on. It's such a simple way to explain a complex process. But once you get comfortable with recognizing what your boundaries are, enforcing them, voicing them, once you get used to that cycle of behavior and the thinking that comes with that, which is empowering yourself, having the confidence, having the self-love, and the sense of self-worth to know that your boundaries are important to be enforced, it does get easier. So for somebody that's been struggling with patterns of codependency, it may feel really, really, really hard to implement this step 3, but it's the only way that you're going to be able to get a control on your external environment. So I will say that out of a decade and a half of me trying to attract a healthy relationship, understand myself in a relationship, understand how to connect in a healthy way with other people in relationships, the thing that took me the most time to master was the importance of making sure that my external environment matched my internal environment, that who I had in my external environment was an absolute 100% 10 out of 10 complement to my internal energy. So the ways that I struggled with implementing this would just be to make excuses for the person that was in my external environment, thinking that I had the, emotional, spiritual, energetic capacity to just, balance it out with my own stubbornness, I guess, is what I actually kind of feel like it looks like in hindsight. But I was just so determined to believe that I could compensate somehow for that imbalance within myself, that I would just be okay with it somehow, or that it would go away on its own, or whatever these things are that we tell ourselves. Because it's scary, it's hard, it is intimidating to realize that you are in a toxic relationship that you feel like is not going to improve. It's a really scary thing to be in a situation where you recognize the fact that the connection that you are engaged in, that you have attracted, that you have aligned with, is actually really toxic for you, and that there's no that you're just to the point to where you don't want to explore that connection any further. Reinforcing this tool number 3 of knowing your boundaries, knowing your authentic needs, that tool is going to really help you get through the scariness of the transition from a toxic external environment to a healthy one. Because when you know what your boundaries are, when you know what your authentic needs are, you can have more confidence in your value as a person. When you recognize why these boundaries are important for yourself to maintain, why your needs matter, when you start thinking about all the things that you need out of another person and out of that connection, and remind yourself why you deserve to have those things, then it really helps you develop a deeper level of self-love. And so that's extremely important. So let me just say this: you cannot connect to your sensuality, have good, healthy sex, experience deep intimacy with any type of toxic self-love and self-confidence patterns. So it's really important for you to understand what you're doing that is impacting your self-love and your self-confidence in a toxic way. So if you know, let's just, obviously we know that a major component to having a healthy relationship and a healthy connection is to have healthy, really deep intimacy, which obviously sex is a part of that. So you need to really explore the ways that you're not only sacrificing boundaries in your spiritual, emotional, mental, but you need to think about the ways that you could be not honoring boundaries, your physical boundaries with people. So, you know, these are all different components of how I, as a woman, has had to reevaluate how I'm connecting with somebody else in a relationship. So those self-awareness practices are going to take you really deep within your own internal environment, and it's going to help you attract what's going to complement that in your external environment. At the Collective Compass, the way that we teach a tool, it has 3 components. First, you're going to affirm, then you're going to ask, then you're going to act. Affirm, ask, and act. So how can you affirm attracting a next level healthy connection for you? You're going to affirm the kind of connection that you want to attract, that's going to honor your authentic needs, honor your boundaries, honor the direction that you're going in your life, or the direction that you're willing to go. You're going to affirm as specifically as possible who you want to attract mentally, physically, and spiritually. Who is this person? Because I know you're sitting around dreaming about them. You're sitting around thinking about it, imagining what they would be like. Who is this person that you are imagining, that you know that you would be the most complimented by should they enter your space, right? So you want to affirm all those qualities. You want to speak it out loud. What is it that you seek in another human being? So, and I want you to be as specific as possible, because it is unbelievable how specific those things can show up for you, how specifically you can speak things into existence. And if you think about all of the 7 billion people or however many on the planet, that person, that specific vision of that person is actually out there. There's billions of people on the planet, and we are all so unique and diverse. So chances are that very unique combination of things that you're looking for does actually exist. The more specific that you get when you're affirming what qualities you want to attract in somebody, the more likely that you are to have that exact person show up in your life. So don't be afraid to get specific. Get specific on their physical qualities, on their mental qualities, on their spiritual qualities, okay? Get specific on all those 3 areas. And then you will have a bigger chance of attracting that exact person into your life, which is actually my experience. And it was crazy, the specific things that I just honestly kind of like humorously thought to myself. I mean, I'm talking about down to the, just everything. that's on another, that we'll go into that on another video if you're interested, but we're going to leave it at that for right now. Yeah, so as specifically as possible, you want to affirm what you want to attract mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, everything. You want to also affirm your needs and boundaries. So again, to go back to the self-awareness practice that I mentioned about being aware and trying to understand what those boundaries are of your own, once you recognize and pinpoint those boundaries and those authentic needs during your self-awareness practice, you want to also take the time to actually affirm those. So take the time to speak those boundaries out loud, especially when you feel like they're being compromised. Once you recognize what your authentic needs and your boundaries are, I want you to start practicing right now to affirm those boundaries, either to yourself in the mirror or to the person that is trying to break that boundary or test that boundary in real time, in real life. The more you affirm them, the more they sink into your consciousness so that it is a louder, more obvious red flag to you when those boundaries and needs are being tested, and it gives you the opportunity to practice growing that strength. If you're somebody that has always or usually or with certain people had the tendency to not stand firm on your boundaries, or just put your needs to the side for other people, if you're somebody that has practiced not honoring your boundaries and not honoring your authentic needs, then a lot of times those red flags aren't as strong when we encounter them. There's not a whole lot you can do to make it more comfortable at first, other than just being willing to experience the growth. Affirm the direction that you're taking in your life. Affirm what direction you're going in, because the last thing you want to do is attract somebody that you feel like has all of the qualities, but they're going in a trajectory that's really going to conflict with where you're going and what you're trying to do in life. Affirm where you're willing to let someone take you, because if you're not really locked into a specific path in your life, you may be more open to where somebody else could take you on their journey. If when you attract that person into your life, they're going to have their own trajectory, they're going to have their own path that they're on. So you being really clear in where you're willing to let somebody else take you, I feel like is something that is not really spoken about, but it's absolutely critical. Just as clear as you need to be on your own life's path and where you're willing to not take yourself, you need to be just as aware of where you're not willing to let somebody else take you. Affirm how the connection feels that you're attracting. This is probably my favorite affirmation, because when you affirm how you want somebody else to make you feel, it kind of gives you a little taste of that feeling while you're affirming it. So if you want to attract somebody that's going to make you feel loved and valued and understood and appreciated, just affirming those things give you a taste energetically of just being in that space with another human being that actually values your feelings, that values your energy. So that's going to help you attract somebody that's even aware enough of how you feel. Affirm the work you are willing to do. Affirm the work you are willing to do. If you are not willing to do the work, then be aware of that. Be honest with yourself. It's really important that you do not interfere with anyone else trying to do their inner work. When you're not clear on the work that you're willing to do in a relationship, you are setting yourself up to damage another human being. You are setting yourself up to traumatize yourself. You need to get real specific on the work that you're actually willing to do, because if you've got somebody in your life that you want to stay connected to, and you're not willing to do the work, then, you know, I'm not really sure how much further that connection can go beyond where you already are. So being aware of the work that you're willing to do and then affirm the work that you're willing to do is going to be really crucial in making sure that you are also supportive of this other human being that you're trying to attract. You want to be just as supportive and just as healthy for that other person that they are for you. So when you're really clear on the work that you're willing to do, it's going to save you a lot of trouble. And you're not going to set yourself up for somebody that's trying to have a different type of connection than you, that's trying to do next level things when you're actually not. You need to really be realistic with yourself and assess whether you're actually willing to do the work that it takes to have that next level connection. And if you're not, no judgment, but just be aware of what you are willing to do so that you can attract somebody else that's on that same level. This is a next level connection that you're attracting, assuming that you're not content with the level you're on now. So next level for you doesn't mean the same as next level for them. You may be trying to get to a certain level that is different from the level that they're trying to get to. The work that you are both willing to do is the magic space of growth. So, you know, relationships and connections take two people that are both willing to do the same kinds of work, the same amount of work. I've got a clip of Abraham Hicks that you guys have to listen to right now.
I understand. I really know that there is a vibrational relationship that has already been created, and that my inner being knows exactly how to guide me to it. And there's no reason for me to feel iffy about it, because there's no if about it. There is a little question of when, but there's no question about if. It is a sure thing. I know that for me, in my vibrational reality, in my vortex of creation, there is another person who is sensitive to energy too, who is exploring personal guidance system too, someone who wants to be expansive, someone who will not be dependent upon me for anything, someone who also will click in to their vibrational reality and will let the source energy that calls them forward call them forward, someone who will not need me to shore them up. I will never have a relationship of codependency, because there isn't anything that I need from anyone or that they need from me that is a good idea for either one of us to look toward either one of us for, because there is a resource, a cache of energy flowing that will support all things. This is the energy that creates worlds that is available to me. It's so exciting for me to know that my inner being knows what I'm asking for in detail, and to the degree that I can't even articulate, but I can feel it. I do know emotionally that what I'm looking for is there. Now I can define it in some ways. I know that being with this person just is so uplifting in nature. I know that it brings out the funny in me, the best in me, the balance in me, the whole in me. I know that it brings out the love in me, the appreciation in me. I know that when I'm with this person, that my ability to appreciate will be enhanced so tremendously, because when two people get together in appreciation and therefore in alignment with who they are, that collective energy, which is what happened when we saw the two of them light up the way they did, that collective energy is more powerful than millions who are not. And so this is not an if question. This is just a question of how much do I understand law of attraction? Enough. How much do I understand my own guidance system? Enough. How eager am I for these things that I'm asking for? Really, really eager. How willing to let it unfold in a natural and comfortable unfolding am I? Really willing to let it unfold. And most of all, how ready am I, moment by moment, to expect wonderful things to show themselves to me along this path of unfolding?
After you affirm, you are going to practice asking. Ask yourself how you can be more aware of the toxic patterns internally and externally that you can shift from where you are now to the next level that you're trying to be on. What toxic patterns are you aware of that you can work on now? Being single, in a toxic relationship, or improving toxic elements within a healthy relationship. These are some examples of some questions that you can ask. Am I struggling with honoring and voicing my authentic self, authentic needs, and authentic life visions? Am I struggling emotionally with self-worth, self-doubt, or insecurities? Am I struggling energetically to feel positive, motivated, and empowered? I'm going to read that one again. Am I struggling energetically to feel positive, motivated, and empowered? If you are struggling with this, I would suggest highly that you try to shift into feeling more positive, that you try to shift into feeling more motivated and empowered before you enter into any connection that you feel like may be next level. Am I struggling physically to be consistent with self-care practices, being physically active, or taking care of myself? If you are struggling with self-care practices, if you are having a difficult time staying consistently physically active, if you're struggling just to take care of yourself, this is something that really could interfere with the health, mental, physical, and spiritual health of this person that you're trying to attract, the connection that you want to attract into your life that's going to feel like that next level. A lot of your ability to feel whole, healthy, and happy is directly related to your self-care practice, directly related to how physically active you are, directly related to how much you're taking care of yourself. And if you need work on these things, I completely recommend that you address these issues first. It's a growth process. If you are, I mean, we all are going to continuously want to work on our self-care. We're all going to continuously work on taking care of ourselves. And as our age changes and where we are in life and what we're doing on a daily basis changes and evolves, our self-care practice are going to have to evolve with it. So it's not like you need to know everything before you enter into an intimate relationship with somebody, but just really be aware of where you are and ask yourself, if you're struggling, how you can improve in those areas. That's really, really critical, because again, you want to be a healthy complement to whoever it is that you're in a next level connection with. So after you affirm and after you ask, you are going to act, ACT, act. Okay, you're going to act like the future self that you want to be in your next level connection now. You're going to practice the actions, the skills, the words, the body language, the energy that you want to have when you're in a connection with somebody. You're going to practice aligning with the energy that you want to maintain. You're going to practice the emotions that you want to feel. You're going to focus on the emotions that you want to feel in that intimate connection. So if you want to feel positive and you want to feel happy, then you want to find ways to practice feeling that way now. Otherwise, you're going to have a subconscious requirement or expectation that that person is going to make you happy, that that person is going to make you feel whole. And even though that does happen to a certain degree, you don't want to put that on somebody else. Just because somebody else makes you feel complete, just because somebody else makes you feel whole, does not mean that that is their responsibility. So it's really important that you take control of practicing what emotions you feel regularly so that you can have that same type of energy. You're going to practice the connection, the comfort, the confidence you want to have with your physical body. Okay, if this is a sore subject for you, I promise you, I know how you feel. My whole journey into everything that I'm doing started with my physical health, the comfort that I had in my physical body, my sense of self-love, my sense of self-worth, and that evolved as I had children. I had my oldest at 20, I had my youngest at 30. It's a big it's a new situation each and every time you encounter something that affects your sense of self-love when it comes to your physical body. There's so many ways that our physical bodies can be impacted just throughout our life that make us feel insecure. So as a woman, if you've had children and your body's changed, if you've had, surgeries or health issues or injuries or, anything that has impacted your physical body in a way that's made you feel insecure, it is absolutely critical that you deal with this feeling and you resolve it in a way, and then you improve it. You need to absolutely understand how crucial it is for you to have a healthy relationship with your physical body, because sex itself is such a critical, crucial element to having an intimate connection, that if you are uncomfortable with your physical body, then you're going to hold back. You're going to be hesitant. You're going to be closed. You want to be open in an intimate relationship. You want to be, you want to make that other person feel how comfortable you are with them. And that can't happen as much, as deeply, as abundantly if you are still feeling insecure about your physical body. So there's so many different ways that we can connect with our physical body. Sex is so important to our physical body, our mental space, and our spiritual energy. Having sex with somebody that we are deeply, intimately connected to and feel like we have a next level healthy connection with can be one of the most healing, the most just overwhelmingly positive, most deeply connecting things that you can do. Sex is something that is considered a authentic need. Having healthy sex in a healthy connection is just absolutely critical. If you're somebody that wants to educate yourself more on how you can have better sexual health, please watch this full video from Dr. Amy Killen. She was giving a speech with Mind Valley, and it was just really informative. I love her story of how she got more into educating herself on her own sexual health, and her story of her and her husband, and what led her to exploring sexual health from a physician standpoint is hilarious and super cute. And so you guys need to check that out. It just shows us, it's just normal shit, y'all. It's just normal shit. I mean, we are all trying to be in a healthier place, and it's nothing to be embarrassed about. If this is a topic that you really want to educate yourself on, how you can be physically having healthier sex, please watch all the way through the end of this video. At the end, I'm going to show you a clip of Amy Killen's speech with Mind Valley, making sure that you're taking care of your physical body nutritionally, staying hydrated, staying active. All of these things actually really play a big part into your ability to have a healthy connection. So to wrap it up, no pun intended, I want to thank you guys so much for your interest on all of this information. I want to send you so much love and encouragement and positive energy, and let you know that it is so beyond possible for you to attract the absolute perfect relationship and connection for you that's going to support you being more healthy in your physical, mental, spiritual energy space. All of this is possible, and I want you to know that you are worth it. If this video was helpful for you, please like and subscribe. I hope that you enjoy the last part, which is Amy Killen. Hope you guys check out the links below to the actual full video of Abraham Hicks that will help you tap into that zone to be able to attract energetically the next level connection that you're looking for. And if you are interested in hearing the full, and definitely listen to the full video by Amy Killen with Mind Valley. Thank you so much for listening to this conversation on how you can attract the next level connection that you are looking for in your life. I can tell you from my personal experience, it could be the most mind-blowing, most blindsiding, most surprising, most completely amazing experience of your life. And it's all based on what you're willing to attract, the work that you're willing to do, the self-awareness practices that you have. Stay tuned for more tools from the Collective Compass on how you can be whole, healthy, happy, mentally, physically, spiritually.
I grew up in a small town in Texas where we didn't talk about sex. My elementary school was surrounded on 3 sides by churches and the 4th side by the neighborhood gun store. So I learned about sex the old-fashioned way, which was to ride the bus to school. I remember one time I asked my mom what a virgin was, and she told me it was someone who's never been married. And she wasn't trying to be evasive or clever. That's just how she thought about sex. If that little girl from Burleson, Texas, knew that she would later spend a good portion of her days asking questions like, so how hard are your erections? Are they hard, or just kind of hard? Or showing women how to use the vibration function of their pelvic floor stimulator, she would not have ever believed it. But here I am. My name is Amy Killen. I'm a physician specializing in anti-aging and regenerative medicine. And today I'm going to convince you that sexual health is not a luxury. Just like exercise and nutrition and stress management, an active sex life is one of the main pillars of health that leads to longevity. So before I do that, I want to tell you a little bit about my story. This is an old picture of me. I began my career as an ER doctor, and I worked in the ER for about 10 years. I loved the ER. It was an adrenaline-packed kind of environment where you got curbside drop-off gunshot wounds and 4 a.m. heart attacks, and it was amazing. By the time I was 33, I was fortunate enough to have twin daughters who were 20 months old, Ripley and Nixon, and a newborn son, Mars. When Mars was 2 weeks old, my husband came home one day, and he said, honey, I have some news. I got a job working out of state that requires me to live out of state, but I'll be home on the weekends for at least a day and a half, so everything's going to be fine. So all of a sudden, I was working at a job that started at 4 a.m. in the ER and had become sort of the lone parent to 3 kids under the age of 2. During those days, I survived on Diet Coke and Slim Jims with a giant helping of sleep deprivation on the side. The final straw for me came when my family was suffering from a lice epidemic. So my little twin curly-headed daughters both came down with lice, and so we hired this lice lady, like a lice fairy or lice whisperer or something, and she came into our house. That's really a job, by the way. She came into our house, and she got rid of the lice, and she told us that we needed to do lice checks on each other every few days to keep the lice at bay. So there I was with my husband, and I'm sitting between his legs on the playroom steps as he's looking for lice eggs in my hair, and all of a sudden it struck me, as he's looking for lice eggs in my hair, that this was the most intimate that we had been with each other in months. And trying to keep our heads above water between our jobs and our travel and our kids and our lice epidemics, we had forgotten about each other. As so often happens in these situations, our sex life had kind of slowly and just insidiously disintegrated. So I started looking for a solution, and I approached it like I would any problem that kind of came into my ER doors, very, very logically and analytically. I took a deep dive into sexual medicine. I read everything I could read. I attended conferences. I sought out mentors. But I didn't just learn about sexual health. I learned about health. Really, this was the first time that I had learned how to be healthy. And I learned how closely related and dangerously intertwined it all is. Physical health and mental health and emotional health and spiritual health and relationship health and sexual health. And I also learned how common it is to have sexual problems, but we just don't talk about them. I was a physician with 3 kids, and I never talked about it. I had no problem removing rectal foreign bodies or talking to 12-year-olds about birth control options, but I was still uncomfortable talking about my own sexual problems. And that's when I realized that a door was open to me, and I needed to walk through it. I needed to get the word out about sexual health, because I'd learned firsthand that the benefits of sex are not confined to the bedroom. The effects of an active sex life spill over and they infiltrate every little nook and cranny of our lives to make us happier and healthier. Now, when I talk about sex, know that I'm talking about all kinds of sex. There's no one right way to have sex or to enjoy it. And this becomes increasingly important as we get older and have to kind of be a little bit more creative. There are a variety of different parts and partners fitting together and colliding in any number of ways. It's in that fitting together where the magic happens. So no matter the shape of your particular sex puzzle, the act of having sex, of being sexual, is a good thing. And I'd like to help you maintain the parts and pieces that keep your sexual jigsaw so satisfying. All right, so we all know that we feel closest to our partners in the minutes and hours and days after having sex. And we know that couples that have regular sex tend to be happier and tend to stay together longer. Right? All right, good. But the thing is, it's actually so much more than just that. Multiple studies have shown us that men and women who have regular sex have lower mortality rates. They die less often. There's a big study in men that showed that men who had sex twice a week versus men who had sex once a month, they had a 50% lower death rate over a 10-year period. They died half as often. I'm doing some math for you guys. And there could be several reasons for this, of course, right? Sex means intimacy, and we know from the Blue Zone data that close personal relationships are really important for longevity. Sex is exercise, with occasional high-intensity interval training in between. Sex is, depending on how you're doing it, maybe. Sex is a great way to relieve stress, also important for longevity. What you may not know is that sex is also great for your immune system. It helps you fight infections. It decreases your risk of depression. It helps you sleep better. It decreases pain. It decreases blood pressure. Sex has also been shown, or at least tied to, longer telomere length in women. Longer telomeres are directly linked to longevity. So this sounds pretty good, right? More sex, longer lives, closer relationships, better immunity. Sign me up, right? The problem is that a lot of people out there have sexual dysfunction. Of men over the age of 40, 40% have some degree of sexual dysfunction. 40% of women have sexual dysfunction at some point in their lives. And the most shocking number is this one. 75% of the men with sexual dysfunction, and at least that many women, are currently untreated. What I want to talk to you about today is some of the things that we can do to treat these sexual problems. And I will be the first to admit that sexual problems are oftentimes not due to dysfunction of the sexual organs themselves, right? There are 1,000 different things that kind of creep into our lives that can put the brakes on sex at the level of the brain. But for today's conversation, let's assume that the brain is ready. It's ready to go. What can we do to keep our sexual organs functioning at a high level for decades to come? I'm going to keep this really simple. There are 6 super sexy, super scientific strategies to help you reach your sexual potential no matter what age, that utilize prevention and regeneration. All right, so as a little recap, 6 super sexy, super scientific strategies to improve sexual function. Number 1 was just take care of your body. Number 2 was, what was number 2? Increase nitric oxide. Number 3, optimize hormones. Number 4, stem cells. Number 5, shockwave therapy. Number 6, vaginal lasers. As I am finishing up this talk, I want to share with you a story of one of my patients. So I saw a guy recently, about 50-year-old gentleman who had had severe erectile dysfunction that had been going on for about 4 years, and it had started after he had prostate cancer surgery. And he'd been to see a number of different doctors, and they told him that basically he needed to get a penile implant. That was kind of his only recourse. And so he came to see me as kind of a last resort. So we did a series of kind of a combination of all of these therapies, which is what I like to do. I like to incorporate a bunch of things at once. So we did stem cells and PRP injections into the penis. We did the shockwave therapy sessions. We increased nitric oxide. We gave testosterone. Made a couple of minor lifestyle changes. About 3 months later, he called me and told me that he had had sex with his wife for the first time in 4 years. And, he was ecstatic, if you can imagine. He confided in me that this newfound vigor, which he never thought that he was going to have again, had brought him closer to his wife and had made him feel more confident, that he actually felt alive again. The thing is, it's so much more than even that. His active sex life may help boost his immunity and fight infections, fight depression, decrease pain, decrease blood pressure, help him sleep better, decrease stress. His active sex life may help to decrease his risk of dying over the next 10 years by half. This is why I do what I do. Not all of my stories have such happy endings, but I love the fact that there now exists, that actually is a funny little joke. I love the fact that there, what's funny is I didn't even think of, there's always these double entendres that happen whenever I talk, and I don't even plan a lot of them, but anyway. I love the fact that there now exists the possibility of these happy endings. Sex, sex is intimacy. Sex is glue. It affects how we feel about our partners and how we feel about ourselves. It affects how we go about our day and how we look at the world around us. And it's wonderful and it's powerful, and a lot of us take it for granted. But sexual health is not a luxury. And sex doesn't just feel good. It's one of the main pillars of health that supports us in this quest for longevity. And I gotta say, of all the things that I can do to make myself live longer, I will take sex over spinach any day. Thank you.
What are you actually doing? Like, what are your actual habits?
I think all of that is key to being successful for longer than 30 days.
Mental health, physical health, spiritual health. At the Collective Compass, we specialize in holistic health.
It's like a starry night.
But are we going to talk about being successful for a decade? And these are the tools that we're providing.